So we've got apologies from Ruth Campbell, John Horn, Margaret MacDonald, Frank Plowright, Stephen Watt, Neil Lovelock, Annie Morgan, Martin Cox, Andrew Dean, and Jack Allison, who's actually one of our new committee members, who had sent his apologies, he wasn't able to be here tonight. That's enough from me, and I'm going to hand you over Dr. Frost. Oh, they were going to look at the agenda. Okay. Well, failed in my first task as the chair. So this is just our agenda for this evening, for the 6th annual general meeting. Like I say, we've got quite a lot to get through, but we should hopefully have opportunities for questions and for a short discussion at the end as well. If anyone's got any points that they want to raise, we'll also be good for in number 6, communication with members, how members can communicate with us, the committee, how you can communicate with each other and contribute. So yeah, with that, I think we'll crack on and we're going to have Ellie doing the chair report.
Thank you very much. You're not going to be able to see me just around there, but thank you so much for coming out. It's a really great turnout, which is fantastic. So yeah, I'm Ellie Harrison. I've been involved in Get Glasgow Moving from the very beginning. I'm one of the co-founders, along with Joanna there, who's come back this evening. And I helped to constitute the organisation in 2019. We had our first AGM in this very room. And here we are, 5 years later, at our 6th AGM, which is really fantastic. So,
I have realised that we're probably doing this open so I can see the slides.
And we use that back, yeah, so I think it comes good to be fine. I'm here to give you a report on our activities for 2023. I don't know how many of you were at our AGM in 2022. Quick show of hands. Quite a few. I think I remember saying at the end of that report that I just didn't think we were going to be able to be quite as busy as we were in 2022. But I actually think now that somehow we've managed to surpass it, because it has been an incredibly busy year, and I think that we have had a very big impact with the 2 big activities that I've highlighted in this summary, which were our report with Centre for Cities and the new Better Buses for Strathclyde campaign. I'm going to come back to those and talk about them in a little bit more detail. But before then, I've also put together a summary of all of the meetings that we've been having with politicians, because as a campaign, we use a lot of different strategies. We're doing a lot of online stuff, petitions, which I'm sure you've all signed, our social media. We do protests and rallies, which I'm sure quite a few of you have participated in. We do public meetings, events, but we do a lot of lobbying behind the scenes as well. So you probably can't read this because it's incredibly small writing, but that just gives you a little flavour of all of the meetings that we've had with various politicians and also officers inside the key kind of transport bodies that we're trying to lobby. And we are, as a campaign group, very proudly an autonomous passenger-led group. We don't affiliate with any particular political parties, but we try to work with as many of them as we can. So we've got good contacts in the SNP, in the Greens, in Labour, and also the Conservatives, with Graham Simpson, who's a local MSP, who's the chair of the cross-party group on sustainable transport at the Parliament. So I'm going to go back to January 2023 now and go through in chronological order as quickly as I can. So, about a year ago, we restaged Bus Regulation the Musical. This was our first big activity of last year at Platform in Easterhouse. Did anybody get to see this?
Yeah.
Not as many as I would have liked to see, but it was first put together. I wrote and directed it, and I was able to fund it with funding from Creative Scotland, which was kind of outside of my work with Get Glasgow Moving, but then put it on in collaboration with Get Glasgow Moving. And it basically is a musical on roller skates which tells the history of public transport in Strathclyde. It lasts 30 minutes, and it's a great way of kind of trying to understand why our buses are in the mess that they are in. It was a really good thing for us to do. At the start of last year, we had a little stall at platform. We were able to, I've got another slide showing how many people came along. There was a massive long queue. Tickets were free. And here's a few shots from inside the musical. I mean, if you missed this, you'll be very pleased to know there's a video of it, and I can show you how to get a hold of that. And I just really recommend it if you want to understand some of the history. It goes back to the 1960s when all the buses are, of course, publicly owned. And it was a real team effort. You can see Susan in the photo there was roped in as a stagehand. Katie Starr's in the musical as the main comper, and Radine was another stagehand, and then the skaters are all from a local roller derby league. We even got a 4-star review in the Herald, so we were very pleased. And lots of other media coverage. So if you're interested in watching it, just search for Bus Regulation, the musical. You'll find it online. There's also a Greater Manchester version and a Merseyside version, so you can compare the different histories. So moving swiftly on to February, this is not the best photo, and I put in a bad photo from our AGM last year to remind me to get a good photo tonight, which we're hopefully going to do at the end. We're going to get a photo of everybody if people aren't for it. But the AGM always happens in February because that's in our constitution, and we elect our new committee for that year. So that kind of takes over February. But March, we kind of got straight back into campaigning, and this was really picking up on one of the big campaigns that we ran in 2022, which was Fair Fares Now, campaigning for fairer bus fares. And we did a final rally outside SBT's offices on the 17th of March, which was when they were approving the regional transport strategy, which had been in development since 2019. So a massive piece of work. We were a little bit disappointed with it. We had been lobbying hard for them to make it more ambitious, but we'd taken our Fair Fares petition there the previous September, and we wanted to see evidence that they were kind of acting on that in the strategy. But what's happened as a result of this is that SBT are moving on to the next phase, which is the Strathclyde regional bus strategy. It just seems like endless strategy after strategy, but we got higher hopes for the Strathclyde regional bus strategy. I'm going to talk about that in a bit more detail in relation to the Better Buses Strathclyde campaign, because that's really what we're trying to influence. March and April last year, the Network Support Grant Plus, which was the boosted support that the Scottish Government was giving to private bus companies during COVID, came to an end. So there were, you'll remember this I'm sure, but bus fares all went up at the beginning of April, and there were bus companies announcing routes getting cut. We got a lot of media coverage at that time. And of course, we're trying to make the case that, you know, all of these problems that we keep seeing in the deregulated system are going to keep happening unless we actually bite the bullet and regulate the buses. Then we went into what I call a mini campaign, which we ran last year, which was around the Scottish Government's zero emission bus fund, ScotZEB, and they were giving out more public money to bus companies or local authorities to buy electric buses. So this was the second phase of that fund, and we did some analysis to show where who got all the money for the first phase, basically, and it was all the big three private companies, Stagecoach, First and McGill's, was scooping up all of that money to buy electric buses, and we wanted SPT, which is a public body, to put in a bid. So we were successful. We held 2 rallies outside their offices on this specific issue in June. We were successful in that they did submit a bid, and a lot of the board members were really keen on seeing this happen. The deadline for them putting their bid in was the 15th of September. And we were really pleased that we were able to get them to do that, and to see that is, if they could get their own fleet of electric buses, then that'd be the first step to them starting up a new public operator for Strathclyde, which is what we're lobbying them to do. But unfortunately, in November, SPT found out that they hadn't received the money, and that this £58 million the Scottish Government was going out was going to go to these two shortlisted private financiers. I don't know if people saw this, because we managed to get quite a lot of coverage about the scandal, really, that this public money is going to these private financiers. STUC did a big press release about it in December, and we also managed to get an article in the Herald, which was just kind of exposing this and beginning to put more pressure on Fiona Hislop, who is the new Transport Secretary. Transport Minister, she came in June last year. So we have been trying to put more pressure on Fiona Hislop, and we do finally have a meeting with her lined up for the 7th of June, 7th of March, which we're pleased about. So still over the summer, I'm not even at my 10-minute warning though, so I'm doing all right. So. You'll remember the night bus fiasco with First Bus saying that they were going to pull all the night buses, and lots of media outlets were coming to us asking for us to comment on this story. We responded to as much as we could. That was a little feature that was on BBC Reporting Scotland. But this is a blog post which we kind of put up, I think, at the end of that fiasco, when it was announced that First and McGill's were going to lay on some of the services again, that sort of again highlighted that we should not be in this situation. It shouldn't be up to the whim of these private bus companies to decide which routes they're going to run. We need to regulate the bus companies so that they provide the routes that the people who live in this region need. And this really set us up for the next phase of our campaigning from September onwards. And the main aim of all of this campaigning, as I'm going to come back to, is to put pressure on SPT to use the new powers in the Transport Act to regulate the private bus companies, and to set up a new public operator for Strathclyde. So the first part of that was the report that we commissioned from Centre for Cities, and we had a relationship with Centre for Cities going back to 2001, when they published a report called Why Mayors Should Choose Franchising, looking at the English city regions and the powers that are available down there. So they were a perfect combination, really, of being very well respected economic think tank that a lot of politicians listen to and respect, and being pro bus regulation. So we thought that if we could get them to come and do a report in Glasgow, that it would be something that would really cut through to the mainstream, get people like Susan Aitken, get people like all the people that we want, people at SPT, to actually start to listen to us. So huge projects, taken over a year. It's actually still going on because the final report isn't due till March this year. But it was so big because we had to get a grant to do it, and we were actually approached to apply for the grant. So that was at the end of 2022, put an expression of interest in. We got a proposal from the Centre for Cities, they were up for it, they put together a quote. We put the application in, you can see this all on here. We finally got the grant approved in March last year, totalling £14,750. A lot of money, but the report itself was very expensive, as you'll see when we get to the Treasurer's report. I mean, very expensive by our standards, but not actually compared to what SPT pays consultants, which is hundreds of thousands of pounds. And that included a grant management fee, which the committee agreed that would be paid to me for managing this whole process and writing the application and writing all of the reporting, which I'm still doing, and also presenting the findings back to Pass for All. So Susan and I did a lot of work with the researchers, basically from May through to October. We met them every month, and then the final few weeks in October was incredibly hectic, reading all the drafts, commenting on the drafts, etc. Meanwhile, organising the launch events as well, and we had our target audience, which was the politicians we wanted to influence. So we managed to get Angus Miller, Councillor Angus Miller, who is the convener for transport at Glasgow City Council, to agree to let us use the Satinwood Suite, which we were very pleased about, because obviously it's a great venue in the City Chambers, but it also meant that we could try and encourage him to really engage with the report. We invited him to join the panel discussion at this event. How many people here were actually there? Yeah, quite a good few. So here's a few pictures. Incredibly well attended. We had a presentation from Centre for Cities, which was done remotely because of COVID, taking out our presenter the day before. But it still went down really well, and it gave a lot more time for the discussion. And again, this was a really good way of us building our relationships with these people on the panel. So Bruce Kylo, who is the head of policy at SPT, we invited him. Angus Miller, as I mentioned, Christy Mearns, who's a Green councillor on the SPT board, and Kat Stewart, who's a journalist for the Herald. We invited her to chair the panel discussion, which was also a very good move, in my opinion, because she's since been incredibly supportive, responds to our messages when we send her information, and it was her that wrote that big article on the Scott Z scandal. I actually saw that as something that needed to get coverage. So very pleased with how that went, and we got a huge amount of press coverage for the report, which you may have seen. The presentation, all of the recordings of the presentations are up on our YouTube channel. If you weren't at the event, you can watch the Centre for Cities presenting the report themselves. And there's also all of the press coverage that we've put up there as well. This is just a clipping from the Glasgow Times, but it's, I guess it was a different angle for us, because a lot of us are involved in the campaign for social justice reasons, for climate reasons, but we specifically chose to focus on the way in which the economy, not just of Glasgow, but the whole of Scotland, is being held back by poor public transport, because we thought that was the issue. It's going to reach your politicians, and I think it really did. We were running on the national, on the hourly news bulletin throughout the day on BBC Scotland, which was incredibly exciting. Every time we turned the radio on, it was like, a new report by Centre for Cities, paid for by the Glas Moving public transport campaign, which they have to say, obviously, because it's the BBC and they have to try to do that. But we had a little feature on STV News and Reporting Scotland as well. So, I mean, the coverage was absolutely amazing. It really surpassed, I think, what we were hoping for. Then we did our second launch at the Scottish Parliament, and this was specifically for MSPs. And we did have Andrew Carter back. He's the CEO of the Centre for Cities, who'd been taken down by COVID 2 weeks earlier, but he was better, came up to the Parliament and gave a briefing to MSPs. Really well attended across the political spectrum. We were over the moon with this. And we also, this is what we want to get you to do later, but these are all the MSPs who we roped in to supporting Better Buses for Strathclyde, which is the new campaign. So I'll just do a couple of minutes on Better Buses for Strathclyde. This launched on the 29th of September, and it's really kind of the campaigning arm of the report. You know, it's campaigning for the recommendations of the report to be implemented. And the idea came out of a conference that Susan and I attended in York in summer last year, which was a national Better Buses campaigning conference that we'd actually helped to organise. Online meetings with these campaigners in other parts of across the north of England mainly, and we made a donation to put the conference on. But we got to meet lots of campaigners, including Matthew, who is he's employed by an organisation called We Own It, but He is leading the Better Buses for West Yorkshire campaign, been really involved in Better Buses for Merseyside and South Yorkshire. And what we decided to do was to build on that successful model to show solidarity with those grassroots campaigns in other parts of Britain and to build on their successes, because around September last year we were beginning to see some of these. I'm going to skip over this one because I haven't got enough time. Oh well, I forgot to have this one as well. But we did a members meeting where we talked about what we can learn specifically from Greater Manchester and from Liverpool City Region, who are furthest along with regulating their buses. And this was just before the B Network launch, which is Greater Manchester's new integrated public transport system. They are the first city region in the UK to re-regulate its bus network since 1986, when they were deregulated. So this is an amazing thing to be happening, and now you can see those yellow buses out on the streets of Greater Manchester. It gives us much more momentum for pushing SPT to go down this path as well, particularly in October as well. Liverpool announced that they're going to be the second city region to do this, so it's a very exciting time, and all of this puts more pressure on SPT. So great time to launch a campaign, and it's incredibly ambitious. I'd say it's the most ambitious campaign that we've ever launched. And by far the biggest, because we're trying to reach people in the 12 local authorities in Strathclyde. We've now had 15,000 of these leaflets printed. We had 10,000. We've got an extra 5. So I would like to encourage everybody who's here to take leaflets away with you, because we need to get them out as far and wide as possible. The main aim at this stage is mobilising people to sign this petition, and we did a campaigning day last October. I've got loads of stuff that we've done, and I'm running out of time. But we were also behind the scenes working on getting organisations to lobby SPT directly. I'm sure this is very small writing as well, but there's a huge number of organisations and also the MSPs that we engaged at the Parliament. We got them all to write to SPT, and that all happened between November and December last year, which is when SPT is looking at the options available to it in the Transport Act 2019, whether it's going to regulate the buses or to set up a new public operator, a combination of those, or to go down the path where we don't want it to go, which is the partnership option, which would be a disaster. So we're putting as much pressure on them as possible. We had the aim of getting all 12 local authorities in Strathclyde to pass a motion. That was incredibly ambitious, and it was just Susan, Kate and me working on it, but we managed to get 6 passed, which we're very pleased about. So these are the council areas that pass motions basically in support of Better Buses for Strathclyde. Some of them required their councils to write to SPT as well. We had a big rally in December and more press coverage for the campaign as well. So I'm just going to finish up with this timeline, which I'm not going to go over in too much detail because we're going to come back to it at the end when we talk about our strategy for 2024. But this is a very, very crucial time, so that's why I'm so pleased to see so many of you here this evening. Hopefully you can take away leaflets and get them out there, because we are planning to hand the petition in on the 23rd of February. So it's really not long. I think it's 2.5 weeks, two and a bit weeks. So we want to try and get 10,000 signatures on the petition. There's quite a long way to go. We've only got just over 5,000 at the moment. But on the 15th of March, SPT are going to make a decision. Basically, not as to whether they're going to regulate the buses, because we're several years behind Greater Manchester and Liverpool, unfortunately, but whether they're going to move down that path. And obviously, we need to get them to move down that path. It is a long path. I've put this together kind of based on looking at the legislation and the hoops that SPT have to jump through, but there'll be various points in the next 4 years where we have to mobilise big time, because the way I see it is the people of Strathclyde versus the people who own those private bus companies who don't want their profits being cut into. But it's going to be a long journey, but if we succeed by 2028, 2029 at the earliest, we'll be in the position Greater Manchester is now, which will be very exciting. So, any questions? And at this point, just clarifications, because if you've got ideas or suggestions, we'll come back to that at the end. And I appreciate I went through things incredibly quickly. But yes, Stuart, quick question.
Right, okay. The question is, who were the two private financiers who received?
Oh.
Yes. Sorry, I missed that. But I mean, I know you didn't mention them.
I had to skip over it really quickly, but I recommend you look at the Herald article. But it's they're called Rock Road and Zenobi. They're both based in London. I mean, it really is a scandal.
Sorry, Rock Road and
Zenobi. It's Zenobe.
How was that justified, especially when it created quite a squishy?
Well, I think, you know, Scottish Government money, which is sitting in Transport Scotland, which is the government body that's meant to fund transport, and then they outsourced that fund to the Energy Saving Trust, which is what they do with a lot of their money, because they actually outsource quite a lot to Paths for All, who were the organisation that gave us the money to write a report to lobby them. So it is absurd. But yeah, so Energy Saving Trust decided to give the money to those two organisations. So you can complain to Fiona Hislop, but they've created this structure where Transport Scotland doesn't even have direct accountability over where that money is going. And
were you able to track down why Transport Scotland gave it to the Energy Saving Trust, especially when they had such a degree of discretion? I mean...
No, but that's a question we can ask Fiona Hislop, because we're going to meet her.
Because I think that she needs to be talked to very thoroughly.
Yeah.
I think that she needs a bit of a...
I think they're embarrassed about it, because it doesn't look good. I mean, our tweet was basically, why is Scottish Government money being given to two London-based financiers?
And then the question of accountability and how, what are they going to do with that money?
Yeah.
Because it's public money coming from the Scottish Parliament.
Yeah, yeah.
So, are we using it in Scotland?
They will be. They will come back to Scotland to buy buses, but I don't know how. It's some complex financial thing. I don't totally understand how it works, but it's worth looking it up. But are there any other questions? Yes.
I just wanted to ask the other local authorities who didn't pass motions, did you find sort of there was a particular reason, lack of engagement on their part, political reasons, or is it still ongoing discussion?
It's a combination of us not quite having the resources, I'd say, to be able to do it in such a short space of time. So we missed some of the deadlines. Do you want to answer that, Susan?
In some cases it was just because deadlines.
Yeah.
We were really just waiting for Christmas and we just didn't get things done in time. Or we just missed out.
Yeah, we kind of tried to focus on ones where we thought there were sort of sympathies or relationships that was already sort of built up because we did have those sort of ones and pieces.
But the best allies we've got are Inverclyde, South Lanarkshire and Renfrewshire, and all of those connections have come through the report, and those councillors coming to the launch and us talking to them and then them seeing, how important this is and being able to take that back to their councils and do something about it. So yeah, they're hopefully going to remain like
That's
that.
right. I'm involved, and because I've been standing at bus stops all day today, waiting for buses, and the amount of frustration that I can feel that everybody has at bus stops is palpable.
Lovely, Geraldine. Thank you. Morgan, who's going to be one of our new members, if you want to just introduce yourself, see why you want to get involved.
Yeah, hi. For those of you who haven't met me before, I'm Morgan. I just moved in from Stirling, and I can tell you all of us wish we had a campaign like this in Stirling. It's brilliant, you've got it, and much of the experience of in Stirling was the same, waiting for McGill's buses to turn up for hours. I think it's essential to the future of not just Glasgow, but probably to the entire country and maybe the entire world, that we have public transport systems we can rely on and not have to wait hours to get on.
Great, thank you very much. Just kind of going around, see if I can see Brenda. Do you want to go? Yes, you? Yes, Brenda, sorry, I used your name, I thought that was sorry.
Yes, I just think the buses should be as good as they used to be and as well connected as they used to be, and especially with climate change, I think it's just essential. And it's also an equal opportunities issue, you know, fairness for all.
Perfect. David?
Yeah, hi everyone. I joined in 2020 when I was doing a Masters of Law and Global Environmental Law and Governance, and just thought that it was very pertinent. And yeah, after 8 years of living in Glasgow, I've gone back to the dark side and got myself a car again, but I'd rather not have one. But it's been a necessity. So yeah, that's why I'd like to stay, because I've been in since 2020 and I'd like to continue with the campaign.
Andrew, would you
Yeah. Although I sort of applied to come onto the board, as it were. From a personal point of view, I'm passionate about public transport. I'm also passionate about Glasgow. And I think if we can all work together to make transport a more viable and easy option, it will have a huge benefit to our economy, but also to deprived people and communities in Glasgow. Where I live in the edge of a very, very deprived area. And you can see what access to jobs, education, if that's made easier, will really help those communities. From a professional point of view, for my sins, I worked in public transport within Scotland. If there's no journalists in the room, I work for Camargue Ferries. And it was interesting because generally, I will say this, my experience of working in the public sector transport is the people running it don't get it. The politicians across the political spectrum don't get it. And some very good points made earlier. Yes, we should be in a position in Scotland, we have the infrastructure, and I see this as being a means to an end. Where do we want to be in 10 years' time? We want to integrate all of that. We've got the basics there. My personal experience of dealing with, as I said, a example, why do you not have integrated timetables for trains and ferries? There's absolutely no reason why you can't do it. No disrespect when you had somebody who's running integrated transport in my organisation who said to us, Andrew, I came to a meeting today on the train. Sorry, I'm not even talking about individuals, but there's a cultural problem in Scotland, and I think with politicians, if it may say, and also with public bodies, there's timidity. I feel sorry for SBT, they're between a rock and a hard place, actually, if you look constitutionally or what they were set up to do. So I think it's a debate that across Scotland people are scared to get involved in on all levels. I'm sorry if I'm having a bit of a rant there, but I'm more than happy to support this. But I do see it as a stepping stone towards something that can and should be achieved for everybody's good.
Thank you, Andrew. It seems like don't want to speak too soon. I think you're going to be a great ally to the committee. I'm excited. Susan?
I've been on the committee, I think, for 4 years now. I first came along to an AGM 4 years ago and then decided to join the committee, really just because, like most of you, I was so angry and frustrated about the state of buses in particular. But I do really believe this campaign has been really effective over the past few years. I think that we are achieving something. I think we are starting to have an effect. I think joining up with these campaigns in other parts of the UK and seeing what's happening in England is starting to shift the balance in Scotland. And I think we've got a bit of momentum on our side, and we also do actually have quite a good time. I think on the committee we do enjoy what we're doing. Like more and more people to be involved in doing the public campaigning side is great, being out talking to people on the streets, and yeah, I just look forward to doing more of it this year.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go. I've been on the committee for 2 years now, serving as secretary. Just similar to everyone else, it's very frustrating. Everyone that you talk to, no single person says, "Oh, it's great, what are you complaining about?" So it's just about harnessing that people power and that frustration and making it into tangible change. So I'm really keen to continue contributing to that in whatever way I can. So that's why I'll continue on the committee.
Last but not least, as I said, I've been involved since the beginning, and thinking back to back then, I mean, I've never owned a car. I'm a cyclist, I walk, I use public transport, that's how I get around. So I've lived in Glasgow since 2008, and when I got here, I was really shocked and disappointed at how bad the public transport connectivity was. And then it took until 2016 till I met Joanna, then we started talking about setting up a campaign. But yeah, as Susan said, we've got momentum now. It's been a really long haul up to this point. I mean, it didn't help that the Transport Act was delayed by 4 years, but now those powers are coming on stream. And I think we can do it. I've put that timeline together, which I'm going to come back to, and I'm prepared to give it another 4 years of my life if the members will have me. But if we can get the buses re-regulated, it's going to be an amazing achievement.
Sorry, I should have said, just in full disclosure, I have a car and I drive that car, and I wish I didn't drive that car as much as I do. One thing I really like about this campaign is it doesn't demonise drivers, because if you're not giving people options, you know, we're very much focused on making the changes and giving people those options and making it a viable option for people, which is something I really like about this campaign. Anyway, moving on. Ellie is going to give us just a quick overview of the communication channels that are open. Oh no, we're doing the voting. Do you want us? I'm mad, and I'm just like, it's fine, we're all in. So it's unlike the previous vote. It's just a simple majority required. So if people are happy, if you just raise your hands, if you're happy to nominate the committee. And we also have 3 people, Radine and Andrew, who are continuing on, who have said that they might have to take a little bit more of a back seat this year because of other commitments, but we all feel they're really valuable contributors to the campaign. They're early to mid-20s, I would say. You know, so that their youthful voice, I think, is really helpful. We also have Jack, who is our new member, who couldn't make it tonight, so they are also up for election. So if everyone's happy, please raise your hands if you're happy with the election of the committee. Lovely, unanimous again. Thank you. Thank you, Laura, for keeping me on track there. So yes, now Ellie is going to give us a short overview of, yes, communication available to members, both in terms of us as a committee communicating with you, you're communicating with us, and communicating with each other.
So we did a little intro on this at the last AGM because we introduced a few new channels for being able to communicate with members and also wider supporters of the campaign. So just on a little breakdown here, and this is kind of how we see the 3 different levels of involvement that you can have and Get Glasgow Moving. So you can be a supporter, maybe you sign a petition, or you take a leaflet, or and if you end up on our mailing list, that's great. If you tick the box when you sign a petition, you end up on our mailing list, then we can contact you and try to persuade you to become a member, which we do. So that's the kind of lightest touch way of supporting Get Glasgow Moving, and we communicate with those supporters via email. We've now got 9,353 people on that mailing list, so it's got quite a large reach. And at the AGM last year, we launched a new WhatsApp announcement group, which is a one-way channel of communication. It's so we can send out information, and it's kind of more, I'd say, for activists really, members and supporters who want to come along to things. So if we're organising an action, if you're not on either of those, you should be, because if you're a member you should automatically get put onto the supporters email list. You can join those on the Get Involved page on our website. You'll see that it's quite small, but there is a link there to join the email newsletter or the WhatsApp announcement group if you would like to and you think you're not already on there. Also check your spam box. The newsletters come from info@getglasgowmoving.org, so if you've got the ability to whitelist that or to make sure it doesn't go into your spam, then we'd really appreciate it, because it will mean that message will get through to more people. Then Then the next level is members. So you will have paid your fees, a minimum of £1 a year, to support the campaign, which is very much appreciated. You should then be automatically added to our email list, which is a Google group, it's called, but it's just one email address that we can send to, which then goes to all of you. There's 326 people on that group now. Again, it's a one-way channel communication. Well, you can reply to the sender, but you can't reply to everybody. So, I mean, it's a good way to contact us. And then at the AGM last... Oh, I realise I haven't put the number.
I thought it was a secret. I thought it was, yeah, I was like,
at the AGM last year, we launched a Facebook group. And I know Facebook isn't everybody's most favourite platform, but this is because it's an online forum, and we had been using something called Slack, which had proved useful quite a few years, but they shut it down. Or they didn't shut it down, but they made you have to pay a lot of money. So we decided to switch to Facebook. What have we got here? We have 59 members on the Facebook group. I don't know how many people here are on the Facebook group. Quite a few. We're trying to encourage as much use of this as possible, and I appreciate that not everybody is a big fan of Facebook, but if this is the only thing you do on Facebook, to just start a profile just so you can access it, then I think it's worth it, because what we found as committee members is that we get a lot of emails to deal with anyway, and if individual members are sending us stuff that could be shared on this platform, it's actually better, because then the whole of the committee can see it, and also members can comment on it as well. So if there's an article or an idea that you've got, then we would really encourage you to use this. And this is just a slide of what it's looking like at the moment, and Susan posting up that article, which we haven't really touched on yet, but maybe come back to it when we talk about our plans for this year, that although we feel like we've got momentum behind getting the buses re-regulated, at the same time, there have been big budget cuts that were announced in December last year, which is obviously the opposite of the direction we need to be going to in terms of funding public transport. So this is just a little post to begin to sort of discuss where we might go with that. I think that's probably everything I need to say about the communications.
I was just wondering, how do people sign up to be on the smaller email group? Do you know there was the one for supporters? Is it people that are paying their fees? That's the.
If you pay your fee, you should get added to it. Susan does that as part of her treasurer duties. She's keeping an eye on all of the new people that are joining, and then she's adding you to that mailing list. If you feel like you're not getting emails from us, I mean, we don't like to bombard you too much, but it would just be kind of every month or so. We sent a few in the run up to the AGM, obviously, but hopefully, people are here.
Larger group is more just for specific campaigns, like sign this petition or
whatever. The big supporter list, yeah. I mean that's our newsletter really, and that's like when we're launching a new petition, we'd send that out to that. But also, this is also a private forum for members because you're special. And we want to give you a special forum where you can share your ideas, and it be a safe space as well. No bus company bosses allowed. We haven't had any try to join yet. I mean, who knows? They could be undercover. What's something else I was going to say, but I've forgotten. And members' events, it's unconnected, but I totally skimmed over it in the report. But yes, just to add to that thing, if you remember, we do like to do at least 1 or 2 members' events each year, which are just for members, obviously to encourage new people to join as well, but to make you feel special as well.
Great, thank you. It's funny that you sat down because you came just for 5 minutes. So just before we move on to our final section, which is the group discussion about sharing ideas for relating to the 2024 strategy and the next steps, Ailey's just going to give an overview of the strategy and what we're going to be focusing on, so that will hopefully spark some ideas.
Yes, I would say, if you haven't got a leaflet, Robert, could you grab a leaflet and just pass those round? Because, I mean, we've talked about better buses for Strathclyde a lot, but we're looking at a 4-year campaign from where we are now, so this is where we are going to be focusing most of our attention over the next, certainly this year, but going forward as well. But the way that this year is looking, and so this time I appreciate there's quite a lot of information on here, and it's not the most beautiful of things to look at. But the way that we kind of see this year going is that we need to push SBT down this path, and that's the first half of this year. Hopefully, after they're going to do a big public consultation on their proposals for which powers to use. Well, it says they're post-March 2024, but I've since heard back from Bruce, who's the head of policy at SBT, saying that's going to be April, May. So that's where the petition comes in really handy, because everybody's signed that. We can also contact them to say, right now there's a big public consultation. We really don't know how it's going to go. I mean, on an optimistic day, I think, right, SBT are going to do this. How can they not do this? Like, after everything that we've been throwing at them for the last few years. And obviously what's happening in Manchester and what's happening in Merseyside and elsewhere. But we have to wait till the 15th of March. So it's a tense time for us, but that's why the next few weeks are so crucial. Anything that you could do to help, we would really appreciate it. Before the petition hand-in on the 23rd of February, if people have got diaries and want to put these dates in, if you think you'll be able to come out, on the 23rd of February we're going to take the petition to SBT offices. 9:30 a.m, which is ahead of the Strategy and Programmes Committee. And then we've got a big rally on the 15th of March, which is the day we will know whether or not they're going to go ahead. Before that, Geraldine, who is really great campaigner. I forgot to say, actually, Geraldine joined us midway through the year last year. We co-opted her, which we're allowed to do under our constitution. She'd been absolutely amazing force for Glasgow Moving. She's organising 2 leafleting sessions the next 2 weekends, and we've picked these locations because we think they're going to be busy. They're not transport related, but we've done leafleting at transport hubs, and we found actually they're not the best places to go, because people are just, I'm going to get my train, I'm going to get my bus, I haven't got time for a chat. So this Saturday, 10th of February, 10 a.m. to 1, Geraldine is going to be at Queen's Park Bandstand, 10 a.m. We're looking for volunteers. If anybody fancies going out, joining Geraldine, you're going to try and do 3 hours?
2 hours.
2 hours. I put you up for 3 there, but it's fine. 2 is fine. There's also, at that time, a lot of people doing the park run. I don't know if anyone's been there at that time, but there's lots of people around. And yeah, Geraldine's number's there. I don't know whether you want to see if anybody will be up for getting involved the next couple of weekends.
But just say, even if you've not done it before, people are really receptive to it. It's not wise where we've kind of tried to pick these places. If you're in the city centre on a Saturday, there's so many people competing for your time. So we're trying to get people in those areas where you're not competing with others. And even, I know it's a lot to come in for just 15 minutes, but it's so helpful, even if you've only got 10-15 minutes to spare to come in, because Geraldine's amazing at it. But it can be, draining, or to be just constantly approaching people and stuff. So yeah, even if it's just a little bit of time you can give, it would be really appreciated.
And as you can probably see on that, sorry, Danny.
Is that the correct date, Rob?
Yeah, it's Saturday.
Saturday the 10th?
Oh, it's Sunday the 18th, yeah, we changed it from the Saturday.
Sorry,
it's Sunday
we're definitely
the 18th,
doing
12 till
Sunday.
2.
Yeah, we're definitely doing Sunday. Sorry. Outside the barrows.
It's Saturday the 10th at 10.
Yeah.
at the bandstand at Queen's Park, and then it's Sunday the 18th,
Yeah. 12 till 2.
12 till 2 at the Barrows.
Yes. And we put the north end of Kent Street, which is where the big sign is that says the Barrows. So,
Well, the
just-
toilets used to be. It's the toilets at the Barrows, you know, at the end.
but there should be a lot of people milling about at that time, hopefully, who are going to get on board. But yeah, generally people are really, really, really supportive once they get their head around what we're wanting.
It's true. When you give out, it's the easiest thing I've ever had to give out leaflets for, because sometimes people pass you and they go, oh no, and then when you say buses, and they go, yeah, and they take one and they're different altogether. So even the people who don't usually take leaflets, it's quite a positive experience usually. It really is.
So sorry, that's very short term. God, were you saying
We've
something?
also got lots of extra supplies of leaflets here tonight if you want to take bundles away and do. The main thing about the leaflet is it's got the QR code to sign your petition, and that's the big drive, is to get as many signatures on your petition as possible before we hand it in. We're trying to get 10,000 this time. It shouldn't be impossible to do that. We've got 5,500 just now, but that's a big push, really.
Could I suggest something for me? This is going back to when I was working. What's this thing? I used to work with a company, some of you might know, that's called Direct Distribution. So you've got places like libraries, museums, you'll see wax where leaflets are. And if you've got lots of money, it doesn't cost very much, but we could speak to them because I'm sure they'd be delighted to help us if we think about the kind of places we want to get leaflets out. It could be things like community centres, hospital, waiting rooms, you name it, but it might be worth us having a look at that because it'd be a good way to get things in folks' hands because people do pick things up.
Thank you.
That's what we've been doing. We've been leaving them everywhere we go. Every place has got a leaflet, right? Just put stuff on the road.
Some people have also been doing vigilante vandalism with stickers in a good way as well, because I've seen quite a lot of them round about.
Some of that's Jane.
Is that a good?
I've also been able to get some of these on.
Yes,
so have we.
Is that a good statement then for ideas?
Yeah, and just to quickly touch on our second half of 2024, you know, if and when we push SPD down that path, they need money. As it says in that report, they need 135 million over a 5-year period to begin to do what Greater Manchester's doing, which is, you know, obviously repainting all the buses, like upgrading everything, making it all integrated. That we're thinking of launching, you know, it'll still be better buses for Strathclyde, but it will be targeted at the Scottish Parliament, at MSPs, at the Transport Minister, to make sure that come the budget next year, they're not cutting public transport again and they're actually starting to take this seriously.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, so we are short on time, but we have earmarked this point for anyone who's got any ideas for strategy. I know that, again, this has been quite strict. It's very difficult when you're in this room of like-minded people to not be like, this is what I don't like about the buses. This is what I don't like about the buses. I am very bad for that. But I think we are all on board about that. The system is bad and it needs to be improved. So we're looking for specifically ideas that, I mean, particularly I brought a focus on getting ideas on you know, this mass mobilisation that we're going to have to do to get people to respond to the consultation. It feels like they make the consultations very long and very unwieldy to put people off. So if anyone's got any ideas about how we can approach that. Also, if you're not comfortable sort of putting up your hand and speaking in front of everyone, you know, there's the communication channels that we have outlined that you can share ideas there later on after tonight. We'll come here first because we've heard from you already, Stuart, but we'll come to you next.
So I recently moved up from Bristol, so I had a question about how this could be approached, because down in Bristol there's a sort of similar campaign for this, but it's run by an organisation called Acorn, which is kind of a community union, tenants union thing. And so it's kind of like the living rent campaign and this campaign combined. and they have always been quite successful getting quite a lot of people involved and signing petitions and turning up. So they do a lot of door-to-door knocking.
Right, okay.
So they literally will go around an area and knock on every single door and talk to people about issues. And it's sort of like, it's community organising basically. I don't know what the capacity is for this organisation to do that. I suspect that's probably how Living Rent are doing it as well, because they're basically a sister organisation to it.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of collaboration between you and someone like them, or?
I don't. Irish Living Rent, what I'm doing.
They have endorsed the Vet Buses for Strathclyde campaign. If you look at the back of the leaflet, there's a list of all the organisations that have endorsed it. We're looking to grow that as much as possible over the next 4 years. So yeah, if anybody knows other organisations, we've got another email group which is kind of Better Buses for Strathclyde Coalition, and that's key people from all of those different organisations where we're sending information out to as well. Living Rent are on there. They have said that they're kind of struggling for capacity in terms of what they can do, but I think it might be worth, us following up again. If they are door knocking, they can be putting these leaflets through the doors as well as others. So yeah, I think it's something we should follow up with them about.
Or certainly getting on, if they are already doing that, getting tips from them, because like I say, we're just giving out leaflets in the street. You kind of find that can be difficult enough sometimes, but there's like actually knocking people's doors is like a next sort of level. But if we know someone that's already doing that, to kind of link up with them.
Where we live is quite a residential area, so we're happy to take a bunch of leaflets and just fire them through everyone's doors.
Yes, that is great. Thank you very much. We'd really encourage everyone to do that. And we're getting Stuart then, I think, so good. And then
okay. First of all, it's to pick up on remarks made by a member across here in the opposite on integration, and also offer an idea. Integration in many ways is quite difficult, as we know, because the millions that you talk about that go to the private bus companies that are really to provide what are described as socially necessary routes. Now that issue still remains even if you have publicly owned organisation. And the other thing too is it was great to see you joining up with Greater Manchester and many of the mayoralties in England, but they have a wee bit more discretion. What was the passenger transport executive, Strathclyde Passenger Transport Executive, lost its status round about 2006, and they were turned into a partnership just like every other locality within Scotland. Glasgow in many ways is quite unique compared to these other localities. It's a big conurbation. Even when you take into account Edinburgh, that captures all the suburbs, which makes a hell of a difference when it comes to bus, by the way. Strathclyde has a much more complex set of issues. So it seems to be that and I should add that the late Alistair Watson was outspoken in condemning that, and it was passed by the then Liberal executive, as it was called. But the SNP, as the incoming government in 2007, of course, grabbed that as a centralising process, and it's never been altered since. Now, to get some of the things done that you're talking about, I think that there is a case for returning the Strathclyde area that's encompassed by the partnership back to having full autonomy and therefore having a control of investment. Now, I say that for also a number of shaping an influence of Network Rail as it operates in Scotland.
Sophie, we're going to come to you. Sorry, I'm just referring to Sophie by her first name because I know her, not because it's not keeping. So Sophie, and then, sorry, yourself over there, so we're going to...
My only point was I think there's a big campaign in the minute if you're going to private company, so I work for a private firm, this is absolutely the kind of thing that they'll be interested in supporting with all their kind of green policies. That their climate change is such a massive, big discussion point at the minute. And I know that I honestly believe if I went into work tomorrow and said, look, I'm going to get involved in this.
Take leaflets.
Do you feel like this is something as a company we could be going, people in Glasgow coming to work using public transport rather than driving, or, you know, would absolutely be the kind of thing that they would get behind. So maybe that's something to consider. You know, it will be on a lot of big companies, big organisations' agendas at the moment.
Thank you. Sorry, I've missed your name.
Sarah.
Sarah.
Very briefly, just following up on the point about getting people to the immediate action of getting people to more people to sign the petition. I think you might have touched on this at previous AGM, but do we engage community councils at all?
Yes, we do. We have a lot of information and have approached community councils, haven't we? But
we probably need to do it again.
Yeah, I think so.
We've got Danny from Govan Community Council and Brenda Jordan Hill. And Robert.
I think that's failed. We've not had one apparently for 20 or 30 years, but we're starting one up next week.
Okay. Yeah, there was discussion at one point about, I don't know if it's like a monthly meeting or something where the community councils come together. Daniel maybe correct me on that. And we were maybe thinking of trying to approach and coming to speak and trying to kind of get everyone in a winner rather than having to do lots of different meetings.
Well, I know that the community councils all have a regular monthly meeting individually,
Right.
but they would take speakers from this organisation.
I'm very sorry to have to wrap it up, but I think we need to finish. Oh yes, Ellie's obsessed with photo ops, so anyone who would like to be in a photo.
It's for social
holding
media, if people are up for it. And just
payment. This is very deep, if anyone has any thoughts about that, about how we can really...
Before the bit.
Yeah.
Or
Philip need to be. You may have to go back.
Can you move forward?
I don't actually what I can do is I think I can do that. No.
David, you might need to go back a bit. I've got so many people. Three. The last line. Better buses. What do we want? Better buses.
Move your hand.
I took like 5 photos.